Okay, let's see. Does that work? Hopefully that works. I can see the volume moving on my screen, which I think means you can hear me. It is so weird that I don't change anything about my computer and things just don't work next time I try to stream. So I think there's some evil spirits trying to stop me from streaming, but we're not going to let them win. We're going to forge ahead with our concept here of Sam Hain from the Real Ghostbusters episode When Halloween Was Forever. This is episode 3, 4. There's episodes before this one. So if you're wondering how we got here, then you should go check out the previous episodes. Otherwise, thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing something fun and creative on your end. We're going to be finishing some colors, some flat colors, and then we're going to be moving on to some rendering, getting some shadow work in here with an emphasis on ambient occlusion, my favorite type of shadow to paint. So, yeah, let's jump into this, guys. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. Consider subbing to the channel and all that good stuff. Now, we were pretty far along in the flat colors here, but there were critical things still left to do. We got the roots. That was the last thing, right? Was this the skin, his on his arms there. We got yeah, the roots at the bottom. And what I'm noticing is that I actually have some things on this layer that should be on a separate layer. Specifically, these guys here should be on their own layer, different from these guys. Yeah. And now let's name some layers so we can be all organized and awesome. So this is going to be skin. And that, I guess, will be, I'll call it leather pouch slash um string? Triple question mark? Sure. I feel unprepared. I don't have my Spindrift soda with me today. I have just a simple bottle of water, but at least we'll be hydrated either way, so I guess it's still serving its purpose. The next color, let's do something just easy to kind of ease us in. Let's do the wood of his scythe. And for the color, as an initial starting point, we'll just choose a sort of boring reddish brown color. And we'll go with that brush there. Hey, how's it going? You could do me a favor and let me know if my volume sounds okay. That would be great because there was some audio nonsense happening earlier. Yeah, volume sounding okay? All right, excellent. Thank you for letting me know. That's why the stream got started a little later today because actually there might even be a short like 30-second stream on my YouTube that I'll have to delete later because I'm sort of prematurely started the stream before I guess had that problem resolved. But we got there. Yeah, it's kind of cool to have the wood peeking through some of those wraps there. Is this window? That looks all right. Yeah. I got an interesting email earlier today from someone looking for some art to be done. And it did not take me long to realize that it was a scam email. It had a few classic red flags. It was the grammar was a little bit suspect, we'll say that. And it was for art for a wedding invitation, which also very strange. That's not to say that there isn't art needed for wedding invitations, but it's not something that I have ever done, nor have I ever advertised that I do. And as you guys know from seeing my art and knowing the art that I create, well, I don't know. I feel like it would be weird to ask me to do a wedding invitation. I mean, unless you have some kind of fantasy sci fi horror themed wedding going on, maybe it would work. But yeah, I don't know. Just a little weird. It also, in the subject line, said that it was an art station inquiry. And, I get messages through ArtStation from time to time from people wanting to connect with me for various reasons. And usually the way that works is ArtStation, the site, will send me an email that says, "Hey, you've got a message on ArtStation. You should go read it." And so then you go on ArtStation and you open up your messages, and it's in your inbox on the website. But this email had the words ArtStation inquiry in the subject line, and then it was not from ArtStation. It was just some personal email to my personal email, which I mean, I do put my email on my ArtStation, so someone could theoretically just go find me. And this has happened before for non scam clients. They do just email me, but it's a usually very different kind of conversation that is had there. Funny enough, one of the most common ways that I get contacted these days is through my Instagram, which is really, really funny. But yeah, ArtStation, though, you two tend to get kind of bigger clients maybe contacting you through ArtStation, but they'll usually send you a message on there instead of a personal email. Um, and then also their email address was from, well, their name and their email address, which was their name with some numbers at the end, was a very generic sounding name. It's not to say that people can't have generic sounding names. I mean, my name is fairly generic sounding, but it's more like you add up all the different pieces of the puzzle and it starts to become a little suspicious. So I guess the moral of the story is if you see some emails that say ArtStation inquiry in the subject line and they're asking you to do wedding invitation art, you may want to think twice about that. Um, if you're somebody who really needs work and you're willing to take the risk, here's what I would advise that you do. You just simply tell them that for private clients, you always like to have a video conference with the client first, just to get to know them and get their details. Have a conversation in person. Well, I guess via whatever web chat, video call, Zoom, Skype. Do people use Skype anymore? I don't even know. Whatever. Video conferencing thing, Discord maybe. I guess yeah, Discord has video stuff. And what that usually does is it usually scares off all the scammers because obviously they don't. Well, they may not even have a webcam. They probably wouldn't want to be on webcam. If they're posing as what sounds like maybe a feminine name, but then they're clearly, a male with a male voice or something, right? Like that's the stuff that is a dead giveaway. So, yeah, that's a way you can kind of entertain potential work without getting scammed. So I just thought it would be fun to kind of share that silly story and also offer a little piece of advice there. Yeah, wedding invitation, exactly. Very, very odd situation. I mean, again, I for the right people, I don't care. I'll do it. But out of the blue like that from a stranger, that sounds very strange. Every time you get some scam after you post your work on ArtStation, yeah. Well, scammers, they kind of that's their job is to know where all of the information lives, right? Everybody has their contact information on ArtStation. Um, DeviantArt, sometimes people have it on there, other times it's hidden. But DeviantArt, the one huge one on DeviantArt, if you're not aware, is the whole they call it the Muse scam, which is just that someone messages you and says, "Your art is so inspirational and amazing, and I would love to use it as a inspirational. I would love you to be my inspirational muse for a big project I'm working on. You'll get credit and you'll get paid for it." Oh, that's a classic one. Please, everybody out there, do not fall for that nonsense. It is just evil and a complete waste of your time. Okay, so there's the wood of the handle. Let's do these wraps. And we'll do the wraps in, I guess, kind of just an off white color for the moment. That's actually a little more saturated than I thought it would be, but that's fine. Maybe it's a happy accident. They do have those tests online where you can uh, check how accurate you are at picking correct colors, eyeballing correct colors. Those are kind of fun, especially as an artist, seeing if you've got a good eye for colors. I've seen this viral video online of a guy who he's like he's the video is him on the street, but he has like a cart or like a little booth or something, and he like mixes paint for people. I think he mixes paint for like spray can paint, but he like mixes custom colors for people. And the video is viral because he like looks at a color for just a second. He like looks at a little example of a color, and then he goes off to his little mixing table or whatever with all his little various colors, and he just starts squirting all these different colors and different ratios in this mixing thing. And after a few minutes of it all mixing together, he loads it in the spray can and sprays it on a sheet, and it's like exactly the same color he just looked at. And feel like if I was given artistic superpowers, I think that level of color accuracy would be definitely in my list. But with digital tools, I mean, it's certainly a lot easier, right? You can just kind of change your mind whenever you want. But if you were like primarily a traditional painter, colorist of some kind, well, then becomes a lot more important, doesn't it? Okay, wrap's done. Next. Hmm. Question is, do we make this section the same color as the blade? And I think that might be safe as a starting point. So let's name some of the layers. So let's call this scythe wood and scythe wraps. New layer. And let's go for a warm gray. Now I wonder, I guess we can just do all of this the same to start a skull. And I think there's opportunity to maybe have this stuff be different up here, but I find that it's actually better to be a little bit bold about, I guess, is that, oh, that's the wood right there, isn't it? Okay, we gave ourselves a little tricky challenge there. Sure. Glad I caught that though. Yeah, so the inclination can be to make every separate element a separate color, a separate local value, and sometimes that separation everywhere is not the right choice. Give me a second here. I'm going to reply to my friend on my phone. They just had a power outage a while ago, and it just turned back on for them. I give them a hooray message. They fared much luckier than I did because last week I didn't stream because of a power outage. Did I say that earlier? I can't remember what I said earlier. Yeah. No, I think I was talking about audio issues earlier. Yeah, I didn't stream last week because of a power outage, which is really unusual for my area. It actually impacted one of my classes as well, which was unfortunate. But yeah, it's not an area that gets extreme weather. Just unexpected. And I was not very well prepared. But just by accident, I had like my phone was pretty well charged and my tablet and my laptop. So I had a few devices that were all pretty well charged. Things that actually I tend to kind of leave plugged in a lot of times. And so that kind of worked out for me. I was able to survive on battery power until it came back on. It was about a 6 or 7 hour outage, which I mean, some of you that live in places like Florida, right? I can understand how that really doesn't seem like a big deal. And I understand that living here in California, the weather overall is just really nice and very, very predictable. But the kind of flip side of that is that you're not expecting things like outages, right? So when it happens, you maybe are not well prepared. And so again, I was sort of caught off guard. It obviously kept me from streaming. I can't keep my PC running and my internet and all that stuff, but I did have enough to put a little movie on and draw in my sketchbook, things like that. And I'll tell you, it's nice when you have a skill that doesn't necessarily need technology to appreciate it, right? I can get out paper and pencil and just draw. I mean, you have to be able to see the paper, I guess, but I had some battery powered candles that I turned on, and I had a little headlamp You know, one of those little LEDs you put on your forehead with the little strap. I had one of those, so I was using that to draw with. And that was cool. Like it gave me a chance to just do some more traditional art and yeah, but in the wake of that, I bought a big old battery backup. So I've got a big old battery charged in the garage now that the power does go out. I won't be worried about having my phone charged or my laptop charged or something because it can run off of that thing for days. One of those camping batteries, you know, they have those giant lithium batteries. You can charge it and then take it with you camping. So I thought, yeah, that's probably a good little backup solution just in case, even though yeah, it doesn't happen that often for me here. But that is the reason that we missed last week's stream, and I was really bummed out about that. So I wanted to get these colors finished. We were so close last time. It felt weird to end the stream before the colors were all done. But we're on it now. Okay, so what's going on here? I guess we've got some of these cracks that I think will glow eventually, but I think for the moment we can just fill it all in with this gray. And we can add the glow later. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's one of the reasons that I like drawing is because it's sort of calming and therapeutic. So when you have a power outage, it can be a little bit, it can cause, I felt a little anxious. My friend was just telling me earlier she was feeling anxious with the power outage, and I totally get that. Like it's, you start thinking about, you know, are you gonna run out of something, or how long is it gonna last for? Can you contact people? Like it just makes you kind of anxious. And so when I start drawing, I kind of disconnect from reality. I think that's probably true for a lot of people. So it ends up being a bit therapeutic in that way. Now, at the same time, if reality gets too distracting, then art doesn't work for me. You know, like I can't. There's too much crazy stuff going on. Then it's a little bit of the opposite where I can't draw. It just like I can't get my head in the game to make anything useful. But if it's something that's just a little bit sort of anxiety inducing, or it's a little bit nerve wracking, then losing my head in a drawing can be pretty awesome. Not in an apocalypse, no. Yeah, if everything was exploding around me, I don't think I'd be here doodling. I think that would be a mistake. But it is interesting to think about. Yeah, that'd be a bummer. You know, you feel like for me, I probably wouldn't draw for a while if there was some really earth-changing events going on. Guess it depends on how involved you are as a video game enjoyer. I think about things like zombie apocalypses and what that would be like, right? Pretty crazy situation to be in. And then we had COVID a while back. I mean, it's still around, obviously, but you know, the kind of peak of it, though, you know, you had like a kind of almost like a weird zombie apocalypse sort of glimmer in there, right? Like where you weren't sure. It's like everybody's getting it, and people are not surviving, and it was just yeah. I mean, luckily nobody turned into a zombie and came back to life as a zombie, but I feel like there was a little like glimmer of that sort of global threat quality to it that was really really concerning. I think things like zombie apocalypses are a little more fun to think about from a fantasy perspective, right? From a entertainment perspective. Like, what would be your weapon of choice? Would it be a baseball bat, a fire axe? I love this game called Left for Dead, specifically the second one. I'm sure you guys have heard of that, maybe played that. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Oh yeah, we got this little bit down here. We can't forget about this part. I guess that little bit in the middle is still wood there, right? Or maybe we just no, let's make that metal. We have a little bit of a lost line there. I guess the sketch artist lost focus there for a minute. We'll have to get in contact with them and file a complaint. Okay. Kind of cool seeing the blade filled in because it's such a strong shape. It's a huge part of the composition, and now we can really see it clearly. So that's pretty cool. And I sort of wonder if maybe we just continue with this sort of a more gray scheme with some of these hourglasses. Although we could also go more gold. I mean, a warm yellow would not be out of place in this color scheme. It's interesting. All right, let's block it in with a gold color, and then we'll see how it reads. We'll try the more kind of uh, bold choice first, and if we get too scared, then we can dial it back. Is that? I guess it's a little too. Let's go. There we go. Let's try that. Yeah, that's good. Gold is an interesting one because you can have polished gold, you can have sort of raw gold, you can have old and tarnished gold. Like it's just even in just the family of metals, you can have just so many subtle variations, which is why reference is good because reference builds your visual library of all these cool, realistic nuances. And when you make a piece of art that captures that thing in the reference, whatever it is. Maybe it's a material. It's sort of like when you try to remember something by writing it down versus typing it, right? Or taking a picture of it and storing the picture. The act of writing it helps you remember it. That works for a lot of people. It works for me as well. And when you draw or paint something, it's like that on steroids, right? It's like you're not just writing it. You're capturing it in many different ways, right? The shapes, the contours, the volumes, the perspective, the color. I mean, you're trying to capture everything. So you're like a computer doing a deep scan, or you're like Trinity learning to pilot a helicopter in a second, right? You're just absorbing mass data. Okay, so there's the yellow. Might be fine. I think it's fine enough for the moment to just carry forward and fill out all the hourglasses with that. And now, yeah, we'll just do it manually. I mean, there's probably some kind of time savings we could have if we were to like move over some of the flats and warp them, but I'm going to be a little old school about this. I don't mind. It's the objects aren't that difficult to fill in. I am certainly anxious to start painting some shadows. Boy, that'll be fun. Something to kind of be cautious of is whether you are getting all the volume here in these thin areas. The lines, when they're at 100% opacity and you're working with color underneath, and those lines are not set to a blending mode that's letting you see through them, you might end up sort of cutting off all of the extremities of your thin designs. And that's obviously not good, right? So, just something to kind of double check you're not doing by accident. And also, go to the edge of your line when you're filling it in. If you, it's a sound, it's very subtle. It sounds very silly, but if you were to color on the inside of all of your lines, what you end up doing is you end up uh, kind of shrinking all the volume of everything. And when we read a drawing, our brain sees the darkness of the line, and it sort of feels the volume to the outside of that line, right? Like we've kind of factor in the line itself as part of the object's volume. So if we fill the flat in to the inner part of the line, and then the lines go away, and then we've in fact shrunk all of the volumes in our image, and we don't want that. So I try to be careful about it, but I think it's most important in these sort of very thin extremities here, where obviously the silhouette would really be impacted if we missed those pieces. Trying to follow my sort of dotted back shape here. It's probably a little hard to see, you know, that I am trying to be inclusive of the lines with when I fill it in, but that is generally the strategy. I mean, you can see that it's a little bit off in some of these areas, but this is also a big simple shape, so not as big a deal there, right? Versus this thing that's got all these little tiny points. The other thing too is that maybe we don't like the gold, but we could explore other metal options like brass, copper, bronze. This kind of warm family we're in with the colors gives us a whole lot of options here for these hourglass metals. Now, here I want to be a little careful because I think that point is has been painted over with this, and I want to get that out of there. Okay, that seems good. Let's make sure this point is clear. Yep, we're good here, and those look fine. That looks good. Might have lost a little bit there. Okay, cool. Let's grab our yellow again. Is that flashbang warning? All right, we're good. It has occurred to me now, painting this next to his arm here, that this yellow is very close to that color. And that may not be the best choice. So it's again where you kind of put it in and then judge if it's working or not. I don't think it's like completely not working, but that does give me a little bit of pause there, that interaction. Now, what is happening here? This is trying to read. Okay. Okay, I see. This is a little bit of a tricky area in here. So yeah, this is yellow here. And then that's yellow. That is. You've got this rope here that's has a little bit of an awkward overlap. Now, what happened here? I feel like that something weird going on there. Is that? Oh yeah, I think we just missed filling that in, didn't we? Okay. Well, problem solved. All right, now let's isolate this. There's that. I guess, wouldn't we see the back of this though? I guess maybe that's why. Well, what I left out though didn't feel organized, right? That didn't feel quite right. I think we need to just be a little bit more designed about that shape. Let's do that. I think that feels better. Now we can fill this guy in very easily. You'll notice that sometimes there's these little things like this little yellow triangle here or here, and I don't really freak out about those things because in the grand scheme, I mean, this is sort of interesting to think about, but with digital, everything is very literal. It you have to sort of there has to be an active effort to inject texture and randomness and subtle complexity. There has to be active effort to bring those things in because digital, the workflows tend not to give you that by default. You have to kind of, yeah, put a little effort into that. So when we have a little bit here and there that's not perfect, it doesn't bother me because once we had all the textures in and there's all this other stuff going on, that little dot of yellow might be awesome, right? Like that dot of yellow might fit in with all the other texture and noise that we're going to have on his outfit here, right? So just something kind of interesting to think about. It can be, I guess, sort of nice for those of you who are perfectionists and you find that that slows you down if you're working on something that's in the kind of style we're working on here. Maybe don't worry about all those little tiny things. When you zoom out, it may not really matter. It might even add a little bit. That was another one of those situations where we didn't paint inside the transparency. Got that fixed up. Give me a second here. I'll send my friend a message really quick. Okay. Yeah, I don't really freak out about that. It's sometimes hard to know about those things, right? Because you'll hear phrases like "the devil is in the details," and it's like, oh boy, well then does that mean that this piece is totally screwed if I don't care about that little dot, right? And it just takes a little bit of experience, I guess, to know what matters and what doesn't. But yeah, but you can kind of look at painters that paint in the style you like, and hopefully it can kind of help you visualize the importance of certain things or the lack of importance of certain things. Okay, we got one more left, and then I think we're good on the hourglasses. Wasn't there was a famous soap opera that had an hourglass as its iconic intro element? I think that was like back in the 80s, so dating myself here. Well, I never watched soap operas, but some of those things were so popular back in the day that it's like you just kind of hear about it, you know about it regardless. It's like I don't listen to Taylor Swift music, but boy, do I know who she is. And speaking of music, I kind of stumbled across a fun genre the other day, and I was curious about it after I heard it, so I went and Googled it, and Google was telling me that it's not really a genre, or I guess it's an emergent genre. It's very new or very kind of niche, but it's called rave metal, and sort of combines uh, aspects of heavy metal music with like techno electronica kind of stuff. Sounded cool to me. I mean, those are two genres I like on their own, and seemed like combining them was pretty sweet. All right, we got just a little bit left here. Guess that turns the corner and we can see it here. The other thing about materials is that sometimes the local color is not what's cool about the material. So you'll fill it in and you might be a little unsure or a little bit underwhelmed. And you may just have to wait till you get the opportunity to bring in, the textures or the reflections or something. Like, I mean, that's the case with all this glass here, right? Like the glass is literally doesn't have a local color at all. We got to wait for our reflections pass to really appreciate that material. Okay, let's see. We've got just, I think, a few things left. Got these coins on the, or what, buckles, whatever they are. I'll call them coins because they're circular. But we've got coins on the belt here, which that probably wants its own color. And then we've got these little medallions or something on his cloak here. Yeah, I kind of feel like these are reminiscent of some of the stuff going on his scythe here. So I'm thinking we just actually make these match that. And I know that that's kind of a boring color, but maybe we have these things glow, these little symbols that could probably help. I don't love the local value choice there though. Makes me wonder if that's the right. Now let's cut it out. Maybe we go with the same sort of color, but we make it darker. Or do we make it lighter? Or do we make it now I'm like totally flip-flopping on this, but let's see. Let's just give it an honest chance here. So a warmer color like this, I feel like doesn't work very well because it sort of blends into this warm underneath. Yeah. And then, well, what if we went, okay, so let's go, we need to go desaturated and lighter. What if it's like a light gray? Saturation. And what if so what if it's just, maybe it's that. Why does it keep reverting? Okay. All right. All right. I think I'm okay with that. I think I like it lighter than darker. And then in terms of the belt, is it the same? Do we just do this again? Yeah. Yeah, I'm cool with that. One thing I want to go back to real quick is this wood. Remember realize that there was a little bit of that showing up here. I wonder if that's just weird though. Like it might not be worth it. Okay. I think we just make it all metal. I think it's just too it's there's too little of it there and it just starts to feel distracting. So yeah. And now we've got his claws here, his nails. They're sort of claw-like nails. They're very long and sharp. So we'll do. Oh, we could give him like really dark nails. Like that could be like kind of gross. Maybe make him a little more brown. Let's see. Let's see how that reads. They get a little lost. I must admit, they get a little lost. I think we might have to go lighter with them. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go lighter with them. I know it's kind of boring. It's kind of expected. I mean, what we could do is we could introduce maybe a gradient, like they're darker, kind of where they're connecting with to the finger, and then they get lighter at the end. That could be cool. I mean, that's something that we haven't explored with anything here is gradients, textures, and patterns, right? So you got to remember that that's still a thing. And I think this wants to be not quite as bright, although wants to be brighter than his hand. Okay, so I guess that's about where we land with that. Cool. So let's do this eye. Now, I don't really know what is going on with the eye. It's like, is it energy? Is it a physical thing? It's a little bit weird to have a. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think about how I want to approach this. So, yeah, maybe, it feels weird to make it like very human, right? I think it needs to feel really kind of weird, like, but dark feels wrong. Well, it's obviously not going to be pink, but maybe we go. It can't be. Okay, that works. Yellow works. Okay. I mean, it's something we're gonna have. I think some glow from inside these jack o' lanterns, right? And so I think whatever's going on with that eye probably needs to feel like it fits with that. And I think making it yellow will have it match pretty well. Now I'm kind of curious about the gums here and what's going on with that situation. Now there's a few areas that probably need to be orange that we missed, looks like. And this area, I'll admit, I think the drawing wanted to be just a little bit clearer here, but I think we could make this work. And then what if the gums were maybe a color like this? We're certainly in the same color family, but is it too loud? Is it Not loud enough? I mean, if it matches the leaves, is that bad? Does that make it hard to understand what's going on? I think one thing is I want this little triangle here to be that color. And then a little bit here. We kind of just need a hint of this throughout. So our eye can just read the sense of that gum line all the way across the smile here. The creepy smile, I guess. Yeah. That is a scary looking mouth, I'll say. Now, with this opening here, I think the idea was that it might get kind of dark in here. And so that's why I didn't continue the drawing of the teeth further back because I was thinking it's going to just be really dark. But it also is going to maybe be illuminated from inside as well. And if that's the case, then we will need to see more, right? It's a tricky one, right? Because I think that there's. Mm, I'm gonna have to play with that. We're gonna have to see how that looks with shadow versus light, and how we want to treat that. This is yeah, it's funny, but like I think this is just the hardest part of this design is just getting his head to work. Um, in the original show, it certainly leverages the fact that it's a cartoon and the design is very simple. And when you start to take that into a more realistic sense, when there's a little bit more complexity to the volume and the interaction, some of those things you have to get resolved, right? Like they can't live abstractly. And I think that's some of the stuff that we're up against here with some of those head design choices. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, I just do think that that is one of the harder parts of this design. Did we get everything? I think we might have gotten all the colors. Let me just do a quick scan. I think that's all good. Yep, we're good there. Oh, you know what? We got these little clasps here, or the little um, eyelets, I guess. Is that what you'd call that? Probably little little shirt eyelets. So we'll get those colored in. Not too worried about what those look like. They're very small. And that I think is the finishing of the color phase. Awesome. Now, let's get ready for shadows. Our lines are there. Let's go color gray. Just to give you a quick idea of what my layer stack looks like. So you can see I have, this is all underdrawing here. So this is, we'll just call the sketch. And we can give that no color. So we got that living there. We could even plop that down underneath the whole layer stack. Here's our background, which we could call this the mat, and then we could put it in a folder called background. And maybe that's got indigo color. My lines are here. Lines are in a few different layers here. We've got a few of the hourglasses separate. We were kind of playing with that, manipulating it, but that's where all the lines live. And then you can see here's all of my flats, and they're all organized by which element they are. I didn't end up naming all these down here, but I think we'll be fine. So now to do some shadows, we're going to put a new folder right here. We're going to call it our subtractive folder. That's just the way that I like to think about layers of shadow. They're all removing light from the scene. And our first layer will be our ambient shadows, aka ambient occlusion. So, yeah, when I'm doing this, we have the option to look at it with the flats on, but we also have an option to look at it with the flats off by filling it with just a flat tone like this. Um, yeah, it's I don't want on my stream. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on some of the technical workflows. If you guys are sort of more curious about some of the specific technical workflows, it'd be a good reason to come and join the school that I teach at, because we can get a lot more in depth with that kind of thing in classes and stuff. It's a school called CG Spectrum. It's a really awesome community. I love all the people I work with there, and the students are awesome. But we have like concept art classes, illustration classes. We have beginner drawing classes. We have a whole bunch of stuff for every skill level. But in those kind of classes is where we can get into a lot of the nitty gritty of, yeah, like all these different, variations of the process, and what process works for you. Um, but yeah, like every year I'll usually do an update with the school to talk about things I'm kind of changing about my process, or things I'm noticing, things I'm realizing. Um, and some of that comes down to like, how am I managing layers, right? How am I dealing with light and shadow? Yeah, there's so many things, so many ways to tweak it. But yeah, when you paint shadows, though, you can paint them on flats. You can paint them on a white background if you want. I mean, if you want to see the shadows clearest, you paint them on a white background, right? I mean, sorry to blind you there, but this is, the easiest way to see any application of darkness is to put it on a white background, right? Like that's max visibility. Um, but something that I find can be a little bit challenging about working on white with shadow is that you're really never going to have, very rarely are you going to have a local value that is white, right? Like if we turn this off and we look at our flats here and we go to grayscale, like look at the grayscales here. And we would want typically all of our flats to also be in some kind of mid-tone area, because they'll be richer, and when we add light and shadow, they're going to be a little bit more receptive. Whereas if we have a flat that's like basically black, or a flat that's basically white, those things, they don't receive light and shadow very well. Right now, it's not to say that that couldn't happen. I mean, there's cases where we just have to have those values be there, but if you can, it's better to try to squeeze the value range a little bit more to the midtones, because they'll be a little more receptive to light and shadow. And with all of those values being in this sort of squashed range, we don't necessarily want to be painting shadows on a white background where it's hard for us to see how it will look in the end, right? Like it's a little deceptive. Um, if you guys are familiar with ZBrush, I'm going to try to use an analogy here. In ZBrush, the default material in ZBrush is this red wax material. And one of the properties of red wax is that it has a cavity map on it, meaning that all of the interstices are sort of lighter, like sort of dusty looking. And it's pretty well known in the pro sculpting scene that red wax is dangerous, in that it can make your details and information look a lot more substantial than they really are. You like sculpt everything in red wax. You'll be thinking, man, that looks hot. And then you'll print it out, do a 3D print of something. And it's like, why does it look doughy, or why does it look lame? Right. And it's like, well, it's because red wax is making everything look a lot stronger than it really was. So, the workflow there is typically try to find a more neutral material to work with, or also maybe switch between different materials. That's why matte caps are cool, right? Because you can change material and you can change lighting at once, so that you can see how is the form reading in all these various conditions really, really quickly. In a similar way, when we're doing shadows on white, it's a little bit like we're sculpting with red wax, right? That is That was a long way to get there, but hopefully that analogy makes sense. So, what does that mean? It means that I may not want to paint my shadows on my flats because that might be distracting, right? Like this might be too much information. But if I paint it on white, it might make it hard to judge how all this will read in the end, right? So I think something like a light gray like this is actually pretty good because it allows us to sort of see where highlights and upper halftones are going to live in the structure because we still need to do that, right? Still need to have the additive layers to describe that part. Um, as we get into it, I'll try to talk a little bit more about it. Right now, with me just sort of vocalizing it and not seeing it, it's probably hard to imagine what does that really mean. So I'll try to kind of elaborate on it as we go. But those are just some of the thoughts that go through my head when I'm deciding, how do I approach the next phase of this process and set myself up for success? Like, what's the layout here that's going to make it easiest for me to execute at a high level? And talking through that hopefully also gives you a sense of how much artists obsess about process, right? When I start doing tool reviews on the channel, hopefully soon, I'm going to talk about one of my first videos is going to be about how your tools do matter, which is going to freak people out. It's going to be like, but your tools don't matter. Everyone says it doesn't matter. You can do everything with just a hard round brush. And I hate to tell you, but your tools matter. And your tool can be the hard round brush, and that's great. But if you prefer something other than the hard round brush, that doesn't make you, uh, that doesn't really say anything about you, right? Like as a pro artist, you're expected to have preferences. Anyway, that's for another video. But let's get into the shadows here. It's enough kind of yapping on about that. Let's go ahead and start to bring in some of this work here. I might drop my lines down in opacity though, because I do want to see my forms as clearly as possible. And yeah, we're going to have a heck of a time with all of these leaves and everything going on, aren't we? Now, I can also leverage the flats because they can give me a nice mask to work with. So for the pumpkin, I can paint very freely outside of this shape and I can get something working there pretty well. Now here, I think we haven't really distinguished between. Oh, we did. I okay. Good job, past me. I was thinking about this in advance. I do tell my students oftentimes to be careful about haloing your forms with ambient shadows. So, we don't want to make a dark outline around everything, right? Not how ambient shadows work. But we do want to leverage ambient shadows to describe forms if we can within reason. I may not worry too much about tiny striations, but if we've got like a bigger shape going on, then there may be a reason to have some shadows show up there. Now, here's where it gets interesting, right? Because we were talking about the kill this layer. We're talking about the lantern either glowing on the inside or not, and playing with that. Yeah, I think we're gonna go dark. at first. I think we're just going to make it dark. I'm going to try to avoid adding additional light sources. In this pass. I'm approaching with caution this the darkness in this mouth area. And something else we should do is we should let's give a little tint to the shadows. A little bit of a warm tint. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Hey, Fries Bag, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We did spend an embarrassing amount of time on the lines, but hopefully it will serve us well in the rendering phase here. We're contending with this tricky mouth area first. That's another thing. I think I've said this before, but maybe when you've got a good amount of energy in you on the piece, maybe try and go and tackle some of the trickier spots, right? Like, we've just started the shadow pass, and I'm feeling we got a lot of good. Uh, my battery is not depleted at all, right? And so, now is the time maybe to try and kind of wrestle with some of these spots that are a little trickier versus waiting till we're a little fatigued later, perhaps, and then our brain won't be strong enough to tackle those challenges. I need to turn this off to see what the heck is going on here. Did we end up? There's like some white around the edges here. Did we end up moving a layer? I think we're supposed to have a little bit of orange here. We kind of missed a few spots. Okay. Cleanup crew, aisle 12. Okay, we got it. Flats off, ambient occlusion on. And actually, I was looking at what's going on with these teeth here. Right. So like that's weird, right? That should probably be some gum right there. Good. And then keep having to turn the flats on and off for this area. It's like a terrible example of being able to rely on just a flat gray background here because I'm trying to see all these small details. But typically, we wouldn't need to check the flats as often as I'm doing here. Just making sure I'm keeping consistent with what I'm doing in the flats. You could also just turn them down, right? Like we don't have to live in this binary world. We could just do something like that, right? Where it's like we can still see the separation, but it's way turned down. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do that. Yeah, why not? I've actually literally never done this before where I'm using a mix of neutral and the flats. Think I think maybe that's a result of sort of being able to talk through it with you guys, right? Like, if you're ever trying to find the answer to something and struggling, maybe try explaining it to the imaginary person not in the room, right? You might just solve it. Getting a little outliney, but it's the teeth I feel like was sort of warranted here. And remember too, we can always double up on these shadows if we feel like overall just too timid with them. We can also use some other tricks to selectively enhance the shadows. I'm going to use a little trick here where I'm going to bring a little bit of extra shadow right at the edge. Even though we imagine the ambient shadow is going to be deepest here in this intersection, I'm going to leverage a little bit of extra shadow at the top to have it come forward and to help us feel the planar transition there. We just have to make sure that it's not too loud. Your eyes are like super, super sensitive to value change. So you don't have to hit someone over the head with it for them to read that change. It's a very subtle manipulation. Here I'm going to see. Okay, I guess probably just want a general amount of shadow from here. Spilling like this. And here. And I kind of ease my way in to the shadows at first, sort of just getting acquainted with the piece and calibrating my vision to what's going on. And then as I get a little bit more confident, I may start to drop in a little stronger values here and there. Kind of how it always goes, right? You're always going to have a little bit less familiarity at first. You're going to be a little nervous. You might not know where to start. Just start somewhere. Start where it feels a little bit less scary to start and then ease your way in. Unless you're trying to do the strategy that I just said about like doing the hard part first while you have energy. Then I guess you're not really easing your way in. but I'll leave that to you. Kind of customize your to choose your own adventure. Now we've got the gum line. Give that some shadow. Maybe there's some weird sort of tooth-like striations in that. Apologies for those of you with fear of teeth and mouth-related things. I'm sure that has a name. I don't know what it's called, but um, mouths are kind of gross, though, right? Like we're talking about realistic, realistic details. Mouths get pretty nasty. Okay, let's get this eye socket figured out. Again, I'm gonna kind of ignore the fact that this element might glow later. We can add that back in. Just gonna think of it like it's only the ambient, single ambient light in the scene right now. Now, is there actually form to this inner ring here? Maybe we do put a little shadow on that. Now there's a ledge here. So maybe we bring a little bit of shadow to this plane. Again, just very subtle. Just so we feel that top facing element there. Right? Can you see how that kind of helps us? It's very subtle, but it has an effect, right? It's interesting how those things matter. And the power of values, man. Values, like it's just crazy how subtle you can be with them. But it's kind of cool seeing. Well, I've shown people my art sometimes before in the line phase, right? They see the drawing and the colors, maybe the flats, and then they'll see it again later with it, rendered out, and it's happened more than once that people say they're surprised at how realistic it ends up looking. Um, and I think that's what's fun about getting in here and really rendering all these forms is that you can take something that maybe felt a little extreme in its line form, and by bringing a good sense of light and shadow, of material complexity, you can really make something quite immersive, right? Like, I mean, if you think about something like a Pixar movie, those characters are very proportionally stylized. The colors are usually very saturated and whimsical, but all of the lighting and shadow is like perfect, right? And that helps us buy into. I mean, aside from all the other things, that is no insignificant contributor to our immersion. So I guess one thing maybe to take away from that is, uh, if you tend to have pretty stylized shapes, um, but you don't like that your rendered work looks cartoony, um, don't blame it on the shape design, right? Blame it on the rendering. Like it may be that you just need to work on how well you're describing your forms. And I'm not a master of this either, right? Like you can definitely go find people who are, you know, gods of value, right? Like that they exist. You can achieve a crazy degree of accuracy with your values. But I'm an, I think I can, uh, I know enough to be dangerous with this stuff. Hopefully, um, I think we can get across these shapes pretty well. Again, enough to help you kind of buy into this crazy design that we've created here. So here I'm going to kind of play around with contouring the pumpkin a little bit. We've got all kinds of fun shapes, little subtle sculptural organic forms on this pumpkin. And so I want to play with those. We've got some cuts, some some scars in the pumpkin flesh, then why not explore that here? I guess that was like us maybe, yeah, there's another kind of like weird scar going on there too, huh? We really were trying to push that nasty fleshiness here. I dig it. That's pretty cool. The other thing about ambient shadows is that they don't have a linear fall off, right? So you got to really think about modulating the fall off based on the conditions. Can't be consistent everywhere. It's going to look artificial. Now, along this edge where the flesh comes up against the gums and the teeth here, we have an opportunity to sculpt this edge a little bit. And my feeling is that if we round this a little bit, it will feel a little bit more fleshy and organic versus if we left it super hard edged. I think it's going to feel almost like metal or something or manufactured or too hard, right? And I don't really want that. So we're gonna bring in a little bit of contouring to this edge. And it's also going to maybe seem like I'm spending a long time on rendering the head forms, but you have to remember that the head is the thing everybody's going to look at first. And so any work we do to this head is going to elevate the entire image. It's uh it's the best place for us to spend a lot of time is on the head render. I mean, you could have literally this only that look really really good and the rest of it be kind of mediocre and people would still appreciate the image, which really says something. And we're not going to do that, but just to kind of drive that point home. Some of these shapes, I'm really glad that we explored them in the line drawing because when you're only worried about contour, you can really think about flow and gesture and just graphic shape, and you're not hindered by tonal consideration. And it lets you, I think, be a little bit more daring about some of those shape choices. And now that they're there in the drawing, now when we're doing the tone, we don't have to think about creating a good shape. We can just think about making the form read. It's like you kind of have to think about yeah, how to sort of leverage the unique advantage of every step of the process as much as you can. What does this phase help me do easiest? Let's do everything in that phase that it's good at, and let's save other stuff for a different phase when we can maybe concentrate on that easier. Now I'm sort of playing with forms within forms, right? Like, do we have maybe some further segmentation to this? I mean, these are all things that are all way too sort of nuanced to do in a line drawing unless we had a lot of hatching or we were doing like more of like tonal work with the pencil. We weren't really doing that, right? So this is our time to explore that. And when I'm doing this, I do kind of think about it like we're in ZBrush, right? Like if this is just a block of clay, I'm trying to make this clay interesting, create cool shapes. What would I do? Just to give you guys kind of a preview, if we take this and double it, you'll see a little bit clearer, kind of like what shadow work we have going on. But we're living in this kind of more subtle world here. Now, let me see what's going on with the line art there. Okay, I see. We lost a little sense of what was going on with the drawing, so let's pull that back. It's kind of cool because the skin of a pumpkin, it's like it kind of reminds me of creature skin, right? Like it's fleshy and but it's kind of hard as well. When you can carve into it quite literally. It gets scarred, it gets mangled, it sort of grows in strange ways. It has asymmetry to it. It's really interesting. Try to get a little more protruding quality to that nose section. I'm also remembering to blur my vision a little bit so I can kind of read the forms easier. Prioritize what's important. And I'm also adjusting whether I'm looking at big, medium, or small forms. I'm being conscious of the information that I'm saying at each of those levels. Like, am I being aware of what the big form is? And then are the medium forms sitting within that? Are those explained enough? And then do the small forms sit inside of that? Are those described well enough? We have to kind of monitor what we're saying about all those different layers of information. Speaking of like a ZBrush sculpt, I mean, that's a great way for you to just see, to set yourself a target for rendering convincing forms. Just, look at a render of a sculpture and just turn it to grayscale and you can just see how much fidelity is in that. I mean, uh AI rips that stuff off all the time, right? Like a lot of AI stuff looks like it borrows from 3D renders. I mean, it makes stuff look kind of weird and kind of over polished and kind of fake, right? But one of the things that it does is it's able to capture crazy amounts of like really like subtle value change. And I mean, you see the power in that, right? Like it really wows people. They're like, wow, look at those forms, so much detail. It's like, yeah, it's just a lot of nuanced value work in there. I mean, there's other stuff going on too, but certainly we cannot ignore the accuracy and fidelity of the value work. So here I'm just using some very subtle gradients to help us feel the transition between these different little scalloped shapes on the teeth. It's all maybe a little bit exaggerated for an ambient pass, but the ambient pass is also acting as a way to help us read some of these shapes. So we can leverage that within reason. So you just do a little bit, and yeah, it's like all right, I can kind of see now what that's doing a little easier. And now we might end up knocking out. We might end up knocking out his teeth. No, we're gonna end up knocking back his teeth a little darker into shadow here. Again, now that I'm getting a little more confident in where we're going with this range. The other thing you can do is you can look for where you think the darkest part of the shadow is going to be in the image, and you can put that in early as a way to give yourself kind of like a visual tent pole. I mentioned that before on the stream. That's another strategy that can work. I don't do it on a global level. I do it sort of locally to where I'm working. I'll sort of work up to a comfortable point, and then I might start to plop in some really really dark shadows where I think it's going to gather most, and that maybe helps me to get across the next finish line of polish on the shadow pass. But that's another thing that you'll notice if you analyze the values of like a photo or a 3D render is that there's both insane subtlety, but also very bold contrast in some areas. Like it has the confidence to do both things, right? To be subtle and to be loud. All right, I'm gonna pull back a little bit on some of the shadow work here because I feel like it's getting a little concave feeling. I want to make sure we get a good convexity to this surface here. And I'm gonna kind of darken the shadows a little bit here. Once again, as if we were in ZBrush, I'd be kind of pushing and pulling this clay around until we got it to feel just right. I guess I didn't warn you guys it was going to be a stream of basically just mostly me painting a pumpkin head. But yeah, I kind of knew. I knew that this was coming. It was going to be a key part of this guy, getting him to work right. Okay, so yeah, maybe we start to explore a little bit of this area up here now. Generally thinking about these sort of like ribs, sort of climb up the sides, this sort of general organic flow to the pumpkin, and how we can kind of weave in and out of that pattern with the various funky shapes we've created, nuanced little fun details. And when you're getting into this stuff, you might be newer to this to the point where you don't even know what shadows look like. And it may sound weird, but I mean that certainly can be the case if you're somebody who may not normally pay attention to that sort of thing. You might be new to art. You don't really think a lot about what do shadows look like, how do they act, how do they behave. So here I'm not looking at any reference for lighting here. I'm just thinking about the forms. I'm thinking about the light, but it is based on me having looked and referenced and painted a lot of realistic images, right? Like it's pulling off of all that. It's not um me like guessing, right? Like it's I'm like methodically working through stuff logically based on information that I previously absorbed from reference. So if you're watching this, no, I didn't just kind of know how to paint forms like this. It's just through a lot of observations. So if you're trying to do this and you're feeling like, "Yeah, I can't quite get the same nuance, um, my shadows don't feel as convincing," then you may just need to do a little bit more studying of reference material. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is actually expected. If you're not doing that, then that's actually weird, right? Then you're some kind of freak, and then maybe you'd want to market yourself that way. But yeah, very much reliant on previous observed information to craft this. And doing 3D sculpting is great. Like it's just another point of reference for you, and you kind of start to maybe blur the line at some point between, are you in ZBrush or are you in Photoshop? I will tell you that when I'm sculpting in ZBrush, sometimes I push Photoshop hotkeys. Um, it's funny how that happens, right? It starts to blur together. I mean, that's what you want, right? You kind of want your core skills to translate through various mediums. Um, if you're finding that you have to really kind of stifle your creativity, or there's just like a kind of a frustrating quality to working in a certain medium, uh, you know, that's not going to be accurately representing you, right? It's going to be some watered down version. So you want to try to get to that level of comfort wherever you're working. As a great example, I am terrible at watercolors, just awful, embarrassingly bad at watercolors. And when I'm working with them, yeah, my design sense goes right out the window because I'm there struggling with all of the aspects of that medium. And the fun thing too is that we're doing sculptural forms, but there's also going to be textural information on this pumpkin head that will be really fun. So we're not done, folks. There's more to come. This guy and this head. It'll get crazy. We might do some maybe some selective overlays of some funky textures as well. We want to get really, really crazy with it. But we don't have time constraints here, and I do like to challenge myself to sculpt a lot of the forms. So we'll kind of do that first, and then we'll see where it lands us. We got started a little late tonight, so I think we're gonna probably go another 15, 20 minutes here. Um, I do like to give it an honest couple hours every stream to see how far we can get. We use that pumpkin mask. I should have a pumpkin mask prop off camera. I put a pumpkin mask on. I'm gonna use my pumpkin mask to paint this part. Oh, okay. We got a couple little scar details in here if I missed them. Let's get those in here. You could also throw little things in that weren't in the line drawing, like maybe there's a few little kind of funky little blemishes here and there. I mean, why not? I tend to leave these till later because as we're sort of sculpting the bigger forms, if we put little things in like that, those are going to get obliterated. So save those for later, but definitely can be a cool addition. Whoops, pumpkin mask. Curious if any of you guys are into the autumn season. It's definitely my favorite season. I don't like summer, which is maybe kind of unique. I think a lot of people really love summer. But for me, it just means it's hot all the time and my air conditioning bill sucks. Autumn is my favorite season. Neither hot or cold. Yeah, it kind of lives in between. You got some cool like weather stuff going on, some cool like fall colors going on. Got some cool holidays going on. I don't know. I dig it. I dig it overall. It's nice you guys can't see in the corner of my computer all these silly Microsoft Windows messages it likes to give me. I'm glad that's hidden by the stream overlays. Should we look and see how it's going to look with little darker shadows and the local color on? I think that's always fun to kind of take a look at. So if we turn off this and we duplicate the shadows, so you can kind of see a little preview there of, I mean, I think that the colors will have to tweak, some of the saturation stuff, but we get a little bit of a sense of what we're working with. And then we can just kind of imagine also a little bit of texture work on the pumpkin itself here. Let's try. Do I have any kind of orangey ones? Maybe we do. Let's see. Let's try that. Let me pull that down a little bit there. Right. So you start to get some of the micro details. We haven't even added any unique, maybe little textural patches in there. So we can start to get a sense of where we're headed, and we also don't have reflections, right? We don't have any of our highlights in place, which we go down between our flats and our shadows, and we put an add layer in here. Set this to overlay. Round soft. Maybe we take the pumpkin value and we bring it down a little bit so it's a little more receptive to a highlight. Let's go like that, maybe. Let's pull the saturation down just slightly. And now we go on top and we do a little bit of light in here, hitting some of the forms, getting a little bit of that going on. This is our like diffuse reflection pass, right? Then on top of everything else, we get our specular reflections. Start to get some of the shiny flesh in. Sometimes I like to do a quick little preview like this to see where we're headed with it, if it's working or not. So hopefully you can kind of see. I think we got something kind of cool going on. I think this could be a super fun, interesting character. And we also don't have our key light in place either, right? Like our key shadows aren't in here. We don't have glow. There's so many things that we're going to be doing next to this that it will be super cool and fun to explore. So I hope you'll stick around for the next series of streams to see how we progress with this guy. But so far, I feel like it's coming together pretty nicely. Hope you agree. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. Hope you have a great week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Remember, you can get a free drawing guide by subscribing to the channel, so definitely check that out, and take care. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.